The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the crystalline chambers of Nexus Prime, where representatives from 47 species had gathered with unprecedented urgency. The air recyclers hummed with tension as Ambassador Kethvar of the Zalithian Dominion called the assembly to order, his 6 arms gesturing dramatically toward the holographic display that dominated the center of the chamber. Fellow counselors, Kethvar's voice resonated through the translator matrix. We face an existential threat to our carefully maintained galactic order. The species known as humans has demonstrated capabilities that fundamentally challenge the natural hierarchy our civilizations have built over 12,000 years. The assembled delegates shifted in their various forms of seating arrangements. The insectoid Thrax clicked their mandibles nervously, while the gaseous ethereals swirled with agitated patterns of luminescence. Even the ancient Vorthak, whose species had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, leaned forward with their massive heads, amber eyes fixed on the display. Let us review the evidence, Kethvar continued, manipulating the holographic interface with practiced precision. The first image materialized, showing a blue-green world orbiting a yellow star. Sol 3, designated as Earth by its inhabitants. Initial contact protocols suggested a species barely achieving faster-than-light travel, with primitive fusion-based propulsion and rudimentary energy weapons. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Most species required millennia to progress from their first interstellar flights to true galactic presence. The standard progression was well documented. First contact with established civilizations, gradual technological uplift through carefully controlled trade agreements, and eventual integration into the lower tiers of galactic society. However, Kethvar's tone grew darker. Subsequent observations have revealed anomalies that defy our understanding of species development. The hologram shifted to show military vessels of unusual design, their hulls bearing the distinctive angular aesthetics of human engineering. Within mere decades of first contact, human vessels have been observed matching the capabilities of ships belonging to Tier 3 civilizations. Ambassador Zaexthal of the Quarian hegemony rose from her biomechanical platform, her metallic voice cutting through the chamber's acoustics. Counselor Kethvar speaks of anomalies, but let us address the specific incidents that have brought us to this emergency session. 3 standard cycles ago, a human diplomatic vessel successfully negotiated passage through Vorthak space without submitting to the traditional dominance protocols. The massive Vorthak representative, ancient beyond the memory of most species present, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. The humans did not bow. They did not submit. They simply existed in our presence as equals. This had never occurred in our recorded history. Furthermore, Zaexthal continued, human merchants have begun establishing independent trade routes, bypassing the established commercial guild entirely. They negotiate directly with planetary governments, offering technological solutions that rival our most advanced implementations. The holographic display now showed detailed schematics of human technology, each blueprint causing fresh waves of unrest among the delegates. Their fusion reactors operated at efficiency ratings that should have been impossible with their metallurgy. Their computational systems processed information using quantum matrices that most species required artificial intelligence assistance to comprehend. But the most disturbing development, Kethvar announced, occurred just 7 solar cycles ago in the Kepler Terminus system. The chamber fell silent. The Kepler Terminus incident had sent shockwaves throughout the galactic community, though few had understood its full implications. A human exploration vessel, the Endurance, encountered a Devourer scout ship at the edge of unexplored space. The hologram shifted to show the nightmare that was a Devourer vessel, its organic hull pulsing with biomechanical augmentations. The Devourers, as you all know, represent one of the few species in our galaxy that poses an existential threat to all sentient life. The Devourers had emerged from the galactic rim nearly 800 years ago, consuming entire star systems and converting their biomass into ever larger fleets. Only the combined might of the most advanced tier. One civilizations had managed to contain them beyond the terminus line, and, even then, at tremendous cost. Standard protocol dictates immediate retreat when encountering devourer forces, HFY continued. Even our most advanced warships engage only in coordinated fleet actions with extensive support. The Endurance, crewed by fewer than 200 humans, not only survived the encounter, but actively pursued and destroyed the devourer vessel. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Several delegates demanded to review the sensor data themselves, convinced that some error had occurred in the transmission. The sensor logs have been verified by 3 independent analysis centers. HFY confirmed, her mechanical appendages clicking with agitation. The humans employed tactics never before recorded in our military databases. They used their own vessel as bait, deliberately allowing the devourer's ship to begin boarding procedures before detonating what appears to have been an improvised nuclear device within their own cargo bay. Suicide tactics, rumbled the Vorthack representative. We have observed such behavior in prey species when cornered. But these humans survived the explosion. More than survived, HFY corrected. Post-battle analysis suggests they planned the entire engagement. Their ship was specifically modified to contain the explosion while channeling its force toward the devourer vessel. They turned a suicidal last resort into a precision weapon. The implications hung heavy in the chamber's recycled air. The devourers had been contained not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through sheer tactical unpredictability combined with an apparent disregard for conventional definitions of acceptable risk. Ambassador Fintel of the Peaceful Altrurian Collective finally spoke, her melodic voice trembling with emotion. Surely this was an isolated incident. One vessel's desperate gamble should not define an entire species' potential. Would that it were so simple, HFY replied, manipulating the holographic display to reveal a star chart. Red indicators appeared throughout the galaxy's outer rim, dozens of them scattered across previously unexplored sectors. These represent confirmed human presence beyond the terminus line. In the 3 cycles since the Kepler incident, human vessels have been observed establishing outposts, conducting surveys, and engaging in activities that our most elite exploration fleets would consider suicidal. The magnitude of human expansion became clear as the red indicators multiplied across the display. They had not simply ventured beyond the safety of established space. They were actively colonizing regions that even the most advanced civilizations avoided. But how? Demanded Council Tar Vex of the Synthetic Concordat, his artificial form shifting through several emotional configurations. Our predictive models indicate that any species attempting such expansion would suffer catastrophic losses to devourer patrols, stellar hazards, and resource depletion. Our intelligence suggests they have developed what they term acceptable loss ratios, HFY answered. They appear to factor in the complete destruction of entire expeditions as routine operational costs. For every successful colony establishment, they willingly sacrifice 3 or 4 exploration fleets. The chamber's atmosphere grew increasingly tense. The concept of deliberately accepting massive casualties as a strategic calculation was foreign to most galactic civilizations. Warfare existed, certainly, but it followed established rules of engagement that minimized losses while maximizing political advantage. There is more, HFY announced, causing several delegates to emit species-specific expressions of distress. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected human signals from beyond the galactic edge itself. They are not content to explore dangerous regions within our galaxy. They are attempting to reach other galaxies entirely. The hologram shifted to show the massive scope of extragalactic space, with tiny indicators suggesting human transmission sources scattered across the void between galaxies. The sheer ambition implied by such undertakings challenged fundamental assumptions about species development and survival instincts. This brings us to the core issue, HFY continued, his 6 arms gesturing toward the assembled delegates. The humans represent something our galactic order has never encountered, a species that refuses to accept limitations. They do not simply adapt to their environment or seek their place within existing structures. They reshape reality to match their vision. Ambassador Quindar of the Temporal Observatory, whose species existed partially outside normal space-time, manifested more fully to address the Council. We have observed similar patterns in our dimensional analyses. Human activity creates ripples and probability matrices that extend far beyond their apparent technological capabilities. They appear to influence outcomes through methods we cannot quantify. Luck, suggested Fintel hopefully. No, Quindar replied, his form flickering between temporal states. Something far more dangerous. They seem to operate under the assumption that impossible odds are merely inconvenient rather than absolute barriers. The evidence continued to mount as additional delegates shared their observations. Human diplomatic missions that successfully negotiated with species known to be xenophobic. Human trade expeditions that discovered profitable resources in regions previously surveyed and deemed barren. Human research teams that solved scientific problems by ignoring established theoretical limitations. They do not follow the rules, summarized the Vorthack representative. Not from ignorance or rebellion, but because they appear genuinely unaware that such rules exist. Which brings us to our current crisis, Kethvar announced, calling attention back to the central holographic display. Yesterday, our monitoring stations detected the launch of what humans term the Great Fleet from their primary shipyards. The hologram resolved into an image that caused gasps of shock throughout the chamber. Thousands of human vessels were arranged in formation, their combined mass exceeding the total military capacity of most individual council member species. Analysis of their trajectory indicates they are heading directly for the galactic core, Zawixthal added, her mechanical voice carrying undertones of barely controlled panic. They appear to be attempting to establish permanent presence in the most dangerous region of our galaxy, where even our most advanced civilizations fear to venture. The galactic core represented the ultimate frontier, where gravitational anomalies, exotic radiation, and ancient automated defense systems created hazards that had claimed entire fleets from even Tier 1 civilizations. It was considered the domain of whatever intelligences had originally shaped the galaxy, entities so advanced that contact was deemed impossible. We must act immediately, Kethvar declared. The humans cannot be allowed to continue this reckless expansion. Their success or failure will fundamentally alter the balance of power throughout the galaxy. If they succeed in establishing core settlements, they will possess access to technologies and resources that could elevate them above even our most ancient civilizations. And if they fail, asked Fintel, their failure might awaken entities that have slumbered for millions of years. The Vorthack representative answered grimly. Entities that view all current galactic civilization as temporary custodians at best. The debate that followed consumed several hours, with delegates arguing various approaches to the human problem. Some advocated for immediate military intervention, though the logistics of such an undertaking against a species proven capable of tactical unpredictability seemed daunting. Others suggested economic sanctions or technological embargoes, though human independence from established trade networks limited such options. There is one solution, Kethvar finally announced, his voice cutting through the argumentative din. We invoke Article 7 of the Galactic Accord. Silence fell across the chamber. Article 7 had never been used in the Accord's history. It represented the ultimate sanction available to the Council. Complete species prohibition from all galactic civilization. You propose to declare humanity extinct in the eyes of galactic law, Quindar observed, his temporal form fluctuating with the implications of such a decision. Exactly, Kethvar confirmed. No trade, no communication, no recognition of territorial claims or diplomatic status. Complete isolation until they either conform to galactic norms or destroy themselves, attempting the impossible. The voting process took place in ceremonial silence, each delegate activating their species' ancient authorization codes. The holographic display tracked the accumulating consensus as species after species agreed to the unprecedented sanction. 43 votes in favor. For abstentions, no opposition. By the authority vested in this council by the Galactic Accord, HFY announced formally, the species designated as human is hereby prohibited from all interaction with galactic civilization. Their ships shall be turned away from all stations. Their communications shall be ignored. Their territorial claims shall be considered void. This prohibition shall remain in effect until such time as they demonstrate conformity to established galactic order. The delegates began to disperse, most feeling satisfied that they had addressed the human problem with decisive action. Emergency protocols would be transmitted to all member worlds within the solar cycle, ensuring universal compliance with the prohibition. But, as the chamber emptied, several delegates remained behind, their forms clustered around the still-active holographic display showing human fleet movements. Do you truly believe this will stop them? Fintel asked quietly. The Vorthack representative's ancient eyes reflected the hologram's light as he considered the question. No, he admitted finally. I suspect we have simply ensured that when they succeed, they will remember our response. ZYX Thul's mechanical form clicked with agitation. Then, why did you vote for the prohibition? Because, the ancient being replied, some actions must be taken even when we know they will prove futile. The humans have already passed beyond our ability to control or contain. We can only hope they remember us kindly when they inherit what we have built. The holographic display continued to track the human fleet's progress toward the galactic core, its indicators moving steadily beyond the boundaries of known space. In the background, automated systems began transmitting the prohibition order to hundreds of worlds, formally severing humanity from galactic civilization. But, in the depths of space, human vessels continued their journey, their crews unaware that they had just been declared non-existent by the galaxy's governing body. The Great Fleet pressed onward, carrying with it humanity's determination to explore, to discover, and to claim their place among the stars regardless of any authority's permission. The Council had acted to preserve their established order. They had issued their prohibition with all the weight of galactic law behind it. The moment for such measures, however, had already passed. Far beyond the reach of Council authority, human settlements were taking root in regions where no other species dared venture. Human research teams were unlocking secrets that ancient civilizations had declared forbidden. Human exploration fleets were making contact with entities that had existed since the galaxy's formation, entities that found human audacity far more interesting than Council protocol. The prohibition would have no effect on humanity's expansion because humanity had already moved beyond the sphere of galactic civilization's influence. They had not sought permission for their endeavors because they had never assumed such permission was required. As the last delegates departed the Council chambers, the holographic display continued its automated tracking of human activities throughout the galaxy. Red indicators multiplied across the star chart, marking settlements, research stations, and exploration routes that extended far beyond the boundaries of conventional possibility. The Galactic Council had banned humans from their civilization, but humanity had already moved beyond the need for galactic civilization's recognition or approval. They were writing their own rules among the stars, and those rules would reshape the galaxy whether the Council acknowledged their existence or not. The moment for preventing human ascendancy had passed long before the Council had convened to consider the matter. They had acted to preserve their status quo, unaware that the status quo had already become a relic of galactic history. In the depths of space, human voices continued their conversations across impossible distances. Human ships continued their journeys into forbidden regions, and human dreams continued to reshape reality according to their vision of what the galaxy could become. The prohibition was now in effect, but it prohibited a species that had already transcended the authority of those who issued it. Aptine Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, watching the impossible vista of the galactic core unfold before her ship's reinforced viewports. Streams of exotic matter spiraled through gravitational fields so intense they bent light into rainbow cascades, while ancient structures the size of solar systems drifted through the cosmic maelstrom like monuments to forgotten gods. "Ma'am," came the voice of her communications officer through the ship's intercom. "We're receiving multiple hails from unidentified vessels. The translation matrix is having difficulty with the linguistic patterns, but the basic message appears to be warnings about unauthorized presence in restricted space." Elena smiled, an expression that had become familiar to her crew over the past 3 years of deep space exploration. It was the smile she wore when reality presented her with yet another supposedly impossible situation to navigate. "Any of those warnings coming from human vessels, Lieutenant?" "No, ma'am. All appear to be from unknown alien civilizations. Some of the energy signatures match theoretical models for Tier 1 galactic powers, but the configurations are unlike anything in our databases." "Then, they're not our problem," Elena replied, turning from the viewport to address her bridge crew through the intercom. "Continue on our planned trajectory. If anyone wants to discuss our presence here, they can match our course and ask nicely." The UES Prometheus was one of 12 capital ships in the human exploration fleet designated as Deep Survey Group 7, tasked with establishing humanity's first permanent presence in the galactic core region. Unlike the diplomatic missions and trade expeditions that had marked humanity's initial expansion into galactic space, DC-7 operated under what military planners called assumption of sovereignty. The doctrine was simple. Humans would explore where they chose, establish colonies where they deemed appropriate, and defend their interests against any opposition. Permission from existing galactic authorities was neither sought nor considered relevant to human operational planning. "Captain," her science officer reported over the comm, "we're detecting artificial gravity fields emanating from what appears to be a constructed structure approximately 2 light hours ahead. The energy output suggests a civilization capable of stellar engineering." Elena nodded, unsurprised. Human deep space surveys had been encountering evidence of such advanced civilizations throughout their expansion beyond the galactic rim. Most had proven either extinct or uninterested in communication with younger species. A few had been remarkably accommodating once they understood that humans were not seeking permission or protection, merely acknowledgement of mutual existence. "Alter course to investigate," she ordered. "Deploy sensor drones and maintain defensive readiness. If we're about to make first contact with core region inhabitants, I want full documentation of the encounter." The Prometheus adjusted its trajectory with the fluid grace that marked human ship design. Unlike the angular efficiency favored by most galactic civilizations, human vessels incorporated organic curves and adaptive systems that allowed for rapid reconfiguration during flight. The result was ships that seemed to flow through space rather than simply traveling through it. As they approached the artificial structure, its true scale became apparent. The construct consisted of interlocking rings of exotic matter, each ring larger than Earth's orbit, surrounding what appeared to be an artificial star. Energy conduits the size of planets channeled power between the rings, creating a geometric pattern that hurt to look at directly. "Ma'am," her communications officer announced with barely controlled excitement, "we're receiving a direct transmission. It's coming through on quantum entanglement frequencies that shouldn't be possible with our current technology." "Put it through," Elena ordered, settling into her command chair with the casual confidence that had carried her through 3 decades of increasingly impossible assignments. The transmission that filled the bridge's audio systems was unlike anything her crew had encountered. It carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in dimensions beyond normal space-time, while the voice itself possessed a quality that suggested intelligence vast beyond human comprehension. "Young builders," the voice intoned, each word carrying overtones of curiosity mixed with something approaching amusement. "Your passage through our domain has been observed. Your kind displays interesting characteristics." Elena activated the ship's response systems, hoping their translation matrix could manage adequate communication. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth ship Prometheus. We're conducting peaceful exploration of this region and mean no harm to you or your territory. Territory, the voice repeated, and Elena could swear she heard laughter in the harmonics. A concept we had nearly forgotten. Most who venture into our realm seek either worship or wisdom. You appear to seek neither. We seek understanding, Elena replied carefully. My species is new to the galaxy, and we're trying to learn our place among the stars. Your place, the entity mused, and now the amusement was unmistakable. Young builders, your kind does not seek a place. You create places where none existed before. This is why your passage is permitted. Elena felt her pulse quicken. First contact protocols had prepared her crew for many scenarios, but dialogue with entities capable of stellar engineering while discussing philosophical concepts of belonging had not been among them. We appreciate your permission, she began, but the entity interrupted her. Permission was not granted. Permission is irrelevant to your kind. We merely observe that your passage continues regardless of obstacles placed before you. This trait is familiar. The implications of that statement sent ripples of excitement through Elena's crew. If core region entities recognized something familiar in human behavior, it suggested evolutionary or developmental patterns that transcended individual species. May I ask what you find familiar about us? Elena inquired. You move as we once moved, the entity replied, its voice carrying undertones of deep memory. Before we transcended the limitations of flesh and time, we also refused to accept boundaries imposed by others. We also transformed impossibility into inevitability through simple persistence. Elena's science officer was frantically recording every aspect of the encounter, while her military advisors tracked energy signatures that suggested the entity could destroy her entire fleet with minimal effort. But Elena found herself genuinely curious about the implications of the entity's statement. Are you saying that humans are following a developmental path you once followed? All successful builders follow similar paths, the entity confirmed. The weak seek permission. The strong take what they require. The builders reshape reality to accommodate their vision. Your kind has progressed from strength to building. Few species achieve this transition. The communication continued for several hours, during which Elena learned that the galactic core region hosted multiple civilizations that had transcended conventional physical existence. They had once been biological species not unlike humanity, but had long ago abandoned material forms in favor of existence as pure consciousness capable of manipulating matter and energy at fundamental levels. The fascinating aspect, Elena reported to her senior staff during their post-contact briefing, is that they view our expansion into core space as a natural progression rather than an intrusion. According to their perspective, any species capable of reaching this region has already demonstrated the qualities necessary for eventual transcendence. Ma'am, her tactical officer asked, did you get any sense of their opinion regarding the Galactic Council's policies toward younger species? Elena's smile returned, broader than before. Oh yes, Lieutenant. They're aware of the Council's attempts to maintain galactic order through hierarchical control systems. They find it amusing. Amusing how, Captain? They described it as younglings playing at governance, while their elders explore the universe. The entities we encountered have been observing galactic civilization for millions of years, watching species rise and fall while attempting to regulate processes they don't understand. The implications were staggering. If the core region entities viewed the Galactic Council as irrelevant children playing political games, then humanity's expansion beyond Council authority was not just acceptable, but expected. There's more, Elena continued. They provided us with navigation data for safe passage through the core region, along with locations of other builder species that might be interested in contact with humanity. Other builder species? Her science officer asked eagerly. Apparently, The galaxy contains several species that have followed development paths similar to humanity's. Most are either extinct, transcended, or operating so far beyond normal galactic civilization that contact has been impossible. But the core entities believe humans might be able to establish communication where others have failed. Elena's briefing continued with revelations that fundamentally altered human understanding of their place in galactic evolution. The species that humanity had encountered during their initial expansion, the various council member civilizations with their rigid hierarchies and careful territories, represented what the core entities described as stable mediocrity. These species had achieved interstellar civilization and then stopped developing, content to maintain their status within existing galactic order. They posed no threat to established powers, but also offered no potential for transcendence to higher forms of existence. The core entities made it clear that they've been waiting for species like humanity to emerge, Elena explained. Builder species are rare because most civilizations either destroy themselves during the transition period or settle into comfortable stagnation. We appear to be navigating the transition successfully. What kind of transition, Captain? Asked our medical officer. From a species that adapts to its environment to a species that adapts environment to itself. Most civilizations reach a certain level of technological development and then focus on fitting into existing galactic structures. Builder species continue developing regardless of external limitations. Elena activated the briefing room's holographic display, showing the navigation data provided by the core entities. The star chart revealed passage routes through gravitational anomalies that would have been impossible to calculate using human mathematics, along with markers indicating locations of ancient builder artifacts. Our mission parameters are changing, Elena announced. Instead of simply establishing human presence in the core region, we're being invited to participate in what amounts to advanced species networking. The entities we encountered want to introduce us to other builder species throughout the galaxy. Ma'am, her communications officer said carefully, what about Earth's reaction to these developments? Command Authority is expecting regular reports on our exploration progress. Elena's expression grew thoughtful. That raises an interesting question, doesn't it? We launched this mission under the assumption that we were conducting deep space exploration for human colonial expansion. Instead, we've discovered that humanity has apparently been recruited for participation in galactic-scale species evolution. The bridge crew absorbed this information while trying to process its implications for their mission and their species. They had departed Earth as explorers seeking new worlds for human settlement. They were now effectively serving as humanity's representatives in conversations with entities whose technological capabilities bordered on godlike. Captain, her tactical officer said slowly, if these core entities view humanity as potential builders, and if they consider the Galactic Council irrelevant to such matters, then our species' conflict with Council authority becomes meaningless. Exactly, Elena confirmed. We've been worrying about Council responses to human expansion while being completely unaware that we were moving beyond the Council's sphere of relevance. The prohibition they issued against human contact with galactic civilization is like children prohibiting adults from attending their playground games. Elena's science officer activated additional displays showing the data they had gathered during their encounter. Energy readings indicated that the core entities routinely manipulated forces that could restructure star systems, while their communication methods suggested consciousness existing across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Ma'am, the science officer said with barely contained excitement, if these entities are willing to share knowledge with humanity, we could advance our species' technological development by thousands of years within a single generation. That's assuming we can survive the advancement process, Elena replied pragmatically. The entities made it clear that species transcendence isn't guaranteed. Many attempt the transition and destroy themselves in the process. What did they say about humanity's chances? Asked our medical officer. Elena's smile became distinctly predatory. They said we show unusual promise because we've already demonstrated the most critical characteristic for successful transcendence. We refuse to accept that things are impossible simply because others say they are. The conversation continued as Elena's crew absorbed the magnitude of their discovery. They had made contact with civilizations that existed beyond the comprehension of conventional galactic society, and those civilizations had essentially offered humanity membership in an exclusive club of species capable of reshaping reality itself. But perhaps more importantly, they had confirmed that humanity's expansion beyond Council authority was not just acceptable, but expected. The core entities viewed the Galactic Council's attempts to regulate human activity with the same amused tolerance they might show toward children playing games of government in a sandbox. "Orders, Captain?" her tactical officer finally asked. Elena stood, her decision made with the confidence that had carried humanity beyond the boundaries of their original solar system. "We continue our mission, but with expanded parameters. Deploy survey drones to begin mapping the core region according to the navigation data we received. Begin preparations for long-term human presence in this region." And our response to the Galactic Council's prohibition, her communications officer inquired. "What prohibition?" Elena replied with genuine puzzlement. "Did the Council issue some kind of statement? I wasn't aware we required their permission for anything we're doing." The crew exchanged glances that mixed amusement with determination. Their captain's attitude perfectly encapsulated humanity's relationship with galactic authority. Not defiant, not rebellious, simply unaware that such authority was supposed to matter to human decision-making processes. "Begin compilation of our contact reports for transmission to Earth," Elena ordered. "Command authority needs to understand that we've moved beyond exploration into something unprecedented in human history. We're being invited to participate in galactic evolution itself." "Ma'am," her science officer asked, "how do we explain to Earth Command that we've essentially been recruited by godlike entities who view the Galactic Council as irrelevant children?" Elena considered this question while watching the impossible beauty of the galactic core through her ship's viewports. Ancient structures drifted past their position, each one representing engineering capabilities that dwarfed anything in human experience. "We tell them the truth," she finally replied. "Humanity has moved beyond needing permission from galactic civilization because we've been invited to help shape what galactic civilization becomes. The Council banned us from their sandbox while we were being invited to help design new playgrounds. As the UES Prometheus continued its journey through the galactic core, its crew began preparing for extended operations in a region where the fundamental rules of space and time operated differently than anywhere else in the galaxy. They had departed Earth as explorers and had become humanity's representatives in conversations that would determine their species' ultimate destiny. Behind them, the prohibition issued by the Galactic Council continued its transmission throughout conventional galactic space, informing hundreds of worlds that humans were no longer recognized as legitimate participants in galactic civilization. Ahead of them, entities capable of moving stars welcomed humanity as potential peers in the ongoing project of universal development. The prohibition had been issued too late to matter. Humanity had already moved beyond the authority of those who sought to contain them, and they had found welcome among powers that considered such containment attempts amusing anachronisms. The moment for regulating human expansion had passed. What remained was for humanity to prove worthy of the opportunities they had been offered by civilizations that had transcended the limitations which still constrained conventional galactic society. Dr. Marcus Chun materialized on the quantum observation platform of Research Station Omega, his consciousness briefly dispersing across several dimensions before reconstituting in the station's primary reality matrix. The experience of translational shift still amazed him. Even after 6 months of working alongside the entities that humans had begun calling the architects. "Welcome back, Dr. Chun," came the harmonious voice of Architect Prime, the entity that served as primary liaison for human researchers working in the galactic core. Your excursion into the probability matrices was most illuminating. Marcus nodded, still adjusting to conversations with beings that existed primarily as conscious energy patterns capable of manipulating matter at the quantum level. The architects had been enthusiastic partners in humanity's scientific advancement, sharing knowledge that compressed thousands of years of theoretical development into practical applications. The data confirms our hypothesis, Marcus reported, reviewing information that existed as direct mental constructs rather than physical records. Human consciousness appears uniquely suited for navigation between parallel quantum states. We can maintain coherent awareness across dimensional barriers that fragment most other species' cognitive patterns. Research Station Omega represented humanity's first joint construction project with transcended civilizations, a facility that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensions while serving as a research center for studying universal constants. The station's human staff worked alongside entities that had abandoned physical form millions of years ago, collaborating on projects that redefined the boundaries of possible science. This confirms previous observations, Architect Prime replied, its form shifting through configurations of pure light as it processed the implications. Your species possesses natural cognitive flexibility that most civilizations require technological augmentation to achieve. This trait appears to be evolutionary rather than learned. Marcus smiled, an expression that the architects had learned to interpret as indicating human satisfaction or amusement. Are you suggesting that humans evolved specifically for interdimensional research? We suggest, came the voice of Architect Secondary, that your species evolved under conditions that required constant adaptation to changing parameters. This created neural pathways optimized for processing multiple reality states simultaneously. The implications were staggering. If human consciousness had evolved natural capabilities for quantum state navigation, it explained why humanity had adapted so quickly to technologies that overwhelmed other species. They weren't learning to use advanced systems. They were discovering capabilities they had always possessed. Dr. Chun called Dr. Sarah Kim from across the research platform. We're receiving priority communications from Earth Command. They're requesting immediate conference with all senior research staff. Marcus nodded, activating the station's quantum communication array to establish real-time contact with Earth across the 28,000 light-years, separating the galactic core from humanity's home system. The technology required for such instantaneous communication had been gifted by the architects as a gesture of partnership respect. Dr. Chun reporting from Research Station Omega. He announced as the connection stabilized. Current staff includes 12 senior researchers and approximately 40 support personnel, all working in cooperation with architect entities on projects relating to dimensional physics and consciousness studies. Dr. Chun came a voice of Admiral Sarah Rodriguez, Director of Human Deep Space Operations. We need immediate assessment of humanity's current strategic position regarding galactic politics. Our intelligence networks are reporting unprecedented developments throughout Council space. Marcus exchanged glances with his fellow researchers. Human expansion beyond Council authority had proceeded so rapidly that Earth Command was struggling to track the implications of their species' new relationship with galactic civilization. Admiral, our work here has revealed information that fundamentally alters our understanding of humanity's place in galactic evolution. We're not simply another species seeking territory or resources. We appear to be candidates for a form of existence that transcends current civilizational models. Explain, Rodriguez ordered, her military background evident in the crisp efficiency of her communication style. Marcus activated the station's holographic display systems, creating visual representations of data that existed primarily as quantum probability patterns. The entities we're working with represent the end point of successful species evolution. They began as biological civilizations similar to humanity, but transcended physical limitations through technological and consciousness development. And they believe humans can achieve similar transcendence. More than believe, Marcus replied, reviewing data that existed as direct knowledge rather than theoretical constructs. They've confirmed that humanity possesses rare cognitive characteristics that indicate transcendence potential. Most species that achieve interstellar civilization settle into stable patterns and stop developing. We've continued developing regardless of obstacles. Admiral Rodriguez's response carried undertones of both pride and concern. Dr. Chun, are you telling me that humanity has been recruited by godlike aliens for species-level advancement? In the simplest terms, yes, Marcus confirmed. But the implications extend far beyond individual species development. The architects have explained that successful transcendence requires cooperation between multiple builder species. They've been waiting for humanity to develop sufficient capabilities to participate in this cooperation. What kind of cooperation? Rodriguez asked. Dr. Kim activated additional displays showing star charts that extended beyond the boundaries of the galaxy itself. Admiral, the architects are part of a network that includes transcended species from multiple galaxies. They're engaged in projects that operate on universal scales, including what they describe as fundamental reality maintenance. Marcus nodded, adding his own understanding to Kim's explanation. The universe requires active management to maintain conditions suitable for biological life and consciousness development. The architects and their partners serve as cosmic engineers, preventing entropy cascade failures and maintaining stability across galactic clusters. You're describing universal-scale civilization, Rodriguez said slowly. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. And humanity has been identified as potential participants in this civilization. Our expansion beyond council space wasn't seen as territorial aggression, but as evidence that we're ready for recruitment to higher levels of existence. The conversation continued as Marcus and his team explained the magnitude of humanity's new circumstances. They had not simply discovered advanced aliens. They had been invited to join a cosmic-scale civilization responsible for maintaining universal conditions that allowed biological intelligence to exist and develop. Admiral, Dr. Kim added, there's another significant factor. The architects have confirmed that the Galactic Council's prohibition against human contact has no meaning at their level of existence. Council authority extends only to species operating within conventional space-time limitations. Meaning, Rodriguez prompted, meaning humanity has already moved beyond the sphere of council relevance. Marcus explained. We're operating with technologies and capabilities that place us outside conventional galactic civilization. The prohibition is like ants attempting to regulate the behavior of eagles. Rodriguez paused, processing implications that redefined everything Earth Command understood about humanity's strategic position. Dr. Chun, are you suggesting that the Council's actions against humanity are irrelevant? Completely irrelevant, Marcus confirmed. We've moved beyond the level of civilization where Council authority applies. They can prohibit human contact with their member species, but they cannot affect human operations beyond conventional galactic space. What about human colonies and outposts that remain within Council space? Rodriguez asked. Dr. Kim activated displays showing the current extent of human presence throughout the galaxy. Red indicators marked settlements, research stations, and industrial facilities scattered across regions that range from relatively safe council space to the most dangerous areas of unexplored territory. Admiral, human expansion has occurred so rapidly that most of our facilities are beyond council monitoring capabilities, she explained. We've established permanent presence in regions where council fleets cannot operate. Even if they attempted to enforce their prohibition, they lack the technological capabilities to reach most human installations. Marcus nodded agreement. The architects have explained that humanity's expansion pattern is typical for builder species. We instinctively seek environments that challenge our capabilities, which naturally leads us beyond the boundaries that constrain conventional civilizations. Dr. Chun, Rodriguez said carefully, I need to understand the practical implications of this information for Earth's strategic planning. Are you telling me that humanity has essentially outgrown the need for galactic political considerations? Marcus exchanged glances with his research team before responding. The question went to the heart of humanity's transformation from single-planet species to potential participants in universal-scale civilization. Admiral, humanity has moved beyond the level where conventional galactic politics apply to our species' development. We're now operating at scales and in regions where the most advanced council civilizations cannot follow. They can regulate interactions within their sphere of influence, but we've moved beyond that sphere. And our relationship with these architect entities? They've offered to accelerate human technological and consciousness development through direct knowledge transfer, Dr. Kim reported. The process would advance our civilization by thousands of years within decades, but it requires species-level commitment to transcendence rather than conventional expansion. Rodriguez was quiet for several moments, considering information that redefined humanity's destiny among stars. Dr. Chun, what are the risks involved in accepting this acceleration? Species transcendence isn't guaranteed, Marcus admitted. The architects estimate that approximately 60% of species attempting the process destroy themselves through inability to manage the psychological and technological changes involved. But the alternative is conventional galactic civilization. Conventional stagnation, Dr. Kim corrected. The architects have observed galactic civilization for millions of years. Species that settle into council-regulated existence stop developing and eventually decline into extinction through inability to adapt to changing galactic conditions. Marcus activated additional displays showing the life cycle patterns of galactic civilizations as observed by transcendent entities. The data revealed a consistent pattern of rise, stabilization, stagnation, and eventual extinction for species that accepted limitations imposed by existing galactic order. Admiral, humanity faces a choice between accepting conventional limitations and risking transcendence to universal-scale existence. The architects believe our species is uniquely suited for successful transcendence, but the decision must be made by humanity as a whole. What kind of time frame are we discussing? Rodriguez asked. The transcendence process requires approximately 2 to 3 human generations, Dr. Kim replied. But the decision to begin the process must be made within the next few years. Once conventional galactic civilizations become aware of transcendence possibilities, they typically attempt to prevent younger species from achieving advancement that would render their own civilizations obsolete. Are you saying the Council might try to stop humanity from transcending? Marcus nodded grimly. The architects have observed this pattern repeatedly. Established civilizations view species transcendence as an existential threat to their position in galactic hierarchy. They typically respond with military action designed to prevent advancement. But you said humanity has moved beyond Council authority. For our current operations, yes, Marcus confirmed. But large-scale transcendence would require resources and coordination that might draw Council attention to our activities. They might not be able to stop us, but they could cause significant disruption to the process. Admiral Rodriguez absorbed this information while considering the political and strategic implications for Earth's government. Dr. Chun, I need you to prepare comprehensive briefing materials for immediate transmission to Earth Command. This decision will require input from every level of human leadership. Admiral, Dr. Kim interjected, there's one more factor you should consider. The architects have indicated that humanity's transcendence would not be an isolated event. We would be joining an existing network of transcendent species working on universal-scale projects, meaning we wouldn't be alone in managing this transition? Correct, Marcus confirmed. The transcendence process includes integration with entities that have successfully navigated similar transitions. Humanity would become part of a civilization that extends across multiple galaxies and operates on timescales measured in millions of years. Rodriguez was quiet again, processing the magnitude of humanity's potential transformation. Dr. Chun, in your professional opinion, what are the odds of humanity successfully managing this transition? Marcus considered the question while reviewing everything he had learned during his months of working with transcendent entities. Admiral, the architects believe humanity has exceptional potential for successful transcendence. Our species demonstrates cognitive flexibility, adaptability, and refusal to accept limitations that are essential for managing the transition. But success isn't guaranteed, Dr. Kim added. Transcendence requires fundamental changes in how humans understand existence, consciousness, and their relationship to physical reality. Some individuals and cultures might not be able to adapt to such changes. The alternative being conventional galactic civilization and eventual stagnation, or attempting to maintain our current expansion pattern without transcendent support, Marcus replied, which would eventually bring us into direct conflict with established galactic powers who would view unlimited human growth as an existential threat to their civilizations. Admiral Rodriguez synthesized the information she had received into strategic assessment parameters that Earth Command could use for decision-making processes. Dr. Chun, continue your research operations and maintain contact with the architect entities. Earth Command will need detailed analysis of transcendence requirements and timelines for species-level decision-making. Understood, Admiral, Marcus replied. We'll prepare comprehensive documentation of all transcendence-related information for transmission to Earth. As the communication link closed, Marcus turned to his research team with an expression that mixed excitement with the weight of unprecedented responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just confirmed that humanity faces the most significant decision in our species' history. Do you think we're ready for this kind of transformation? Dr. Kim asked. Marcus looked out through the station's dimensional viewing ports, watching impossible vistas of the galactic core, where matter and energy danced according to rules that transcended conventional physics. Sarah, humanity has spent its entire existence adapting to challenges that other species would consider impossible to survive. This is different, she pointed out. This is choosing to become something fundamentally different than what we are. Is it? Marcus asked thoughtfully. Or is it finally becoming what we've always been in potential? The architects say our consciousness already operates across quantum states that fragment other species' awareness. Maybe transcendence is just recognizing capabilities we've always possessed. The research team continued their discussion while preparing documentation that would help humanity decide its ultimate destiny. Around them, Research Station Omega continued its operations across multiple dimensions, serving as proof that humans could successfully integrate with transcendent civilizations while maintaining their essential identity. But whether humanity as a whole would choose transcendence over conventional civilization remained an open question, one that would reshape the galaxy regardless of the answer. Chosen ambassador HFY materialized in his private chambers aboard the Zilithian flagship, his 6 arms trembling with a combination of exhaustion and barely controlled panic. The emergency council session had been reconvened for the 3rd time in as many standard cycles, each meeting bringing increasingly disturbing reports about human activities throughout the galaxy. My lord, his aide announced through the chamber's communication system, priority intelligence reports have arrived from all monitoring sectors. The situation has escalated beyond our initial assessments. HFY activated his personal holographic display, bracing himself for information that would likely confirm his growing fears about the effectiveness of the Council's prohibition against human contact. The data that materialized before him exceeded his worst expectations. The human expansion that had prompted the original prohibition had not slowed. If anything, it had accelerated beyond all rational models of species development. Human presence indicators now appeared in star systems that should have been impossible to reach, using technologies that defied understanding of conventional physics. Status report on prohibition enforcement. Kethvar requested, though he suspected the answer would not improve his mood. Compliance among Council member worlds remains at 97%, his aide replied. However, enforcement effectiveness appears to be minimal. Human activities continue unabated in all monitored sectors. Kethvar studied the holographic star chart, watching as red indicators marking human presence multiplied across regions that should have been accessible only to the most advanced Tier 1 civilizations. The humans had not simply ignored the Council's prohibition. They appeared unaware that such a prohibition had been issued. What about our intelligence on human governmental response to the prohibition? He asked. Sir, our deep space monitoring stations have intercepted human communications that suggest their leadership views the prohibition as irrelevant to their operational planning. Quote, the Council regulates interactions within conventional galactic space. We're operating beyond conventional limitations. End quote. The casual dismissal of Council authority represented in that intercepted communication sent chills through Kethvar's nervous system. Humanity wasn't defying galactic law. They were simply operating beyond the scope where galactic law applied. Summon the Emergency Council, Kethvar ordered. All member species representatives must review this intelligence immediately. Within hours, the crystalline chambers of Nexus Prime once again hosted an emergency gathering of galactic civilizations' leadership. But, unlike the confident assembly that had issued humanity's prohibition, this gathering carried an atmosphere of barely suppressed desperation. Fellow counselors, Kethvar announced, his voice lacking the authoritative tone that had characterized his previous addresses, our prohibition against human contact has proven insufficient to contain the threat their expansion poses to galactic stability. The holographic displays activated throughout the chamber, showing intelligence data gathered from across the galaxy's spiral arms. What they revealed was a pattern of human activity that challenged fundamental assumptions about species development and technological progression. Ambassador Zyexthul of the Quarian hegemony rose from her platform, her mechanical voice carrying frequencies of distress. The humans have established permanent installations in the galactic core region itself. Our most advanced sensor arrays detect artificial structures operating at energy levels that exceed our theoretical maximums for sustainable technology. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembled delegates. The galactic core represented the ultimate frontier, where gravitational anomalies and exotic radiation created conditions that even the most advanced civilizations avoided. Human presence in such regions suggested technological capabilities that rendered conventional power hierarchies meaningless. Furthermore, Zyexthul continued, spectral analysis indicates these installations are not purely human constructions. Energy signatures suggest cooperation with entities that our xenobiological databases cannot classify. The implications struck the assembly like a physical blow. If humans had established contact with core region entities, they had moved beyond interaction with conventional galactic civilization into partnership with whatever intelligences govern the galaxy's most dangerous territories. Counselor Vex of the Synthetic Concordat projected additional data showing human ship movements throughout previously unexplored sectors. Analysis of human expansion patterns indicates they are not conducting random exploration. Their movements suggest knowledge of galactic geography that should require millions of years to accumulate. How is this possible? Demanded Ambassador Fintel of the Altrurian Collective, her melodic voice strained with confusion and fear. We believe, Vex replied, that humans have established information-sharing relationships with entities that possess comprehensive galactic maps and navigational data. They are receiving guidance from sources beyond our ability to monitor or intercept. The ancient Vorthak representative shifted his massive form, amber eyes reflecting the chamber's lighting as he processed information that challenged a species' understanding of galactic evolution. The young builders have found patronage among the ancients, he rumbled. This explains their rapid advancement beyond natural developmental timelines. Patronage Kethvar asked, though he suspected the answer would confirm his worst fears. Our oldest records speak of entities that shaped the galaxy in ages before our civilizations achieved consciousness, the Vorthak explained. These entities withdrew from active involvement in galactic affairs as younger species emerged, but they never disappeared entirely. If humans have gained their attention and approval, he did not need to finish the statement. Every delegate understood the implications of human cooperation with the galaxy's original architects. Ambassador Quindar of the Temporal Observatory manifested more fully in normal space-time to address the assembly. Our dimensional analysis confirms the Vorthak assessment. Human activities are creating temporal ripples that extend far beyond their apparent technological capabilities. They are being assisted by entities that operate outside conventional space-time limitations. What are our options? Kethvar asked, though the question carried undertones of desperation rather than strategic planning. Military intervention remains theoretically possible, suggested Counselor Threxmar of the insectoid swarms, his mandibles clicking with aggressive undertones. Combined council fleets might be capable of disrupting human expansion if deployed immediately. The chamber fell silent as delegates considered the implications of military action against a species that had already demonstrated tactical unpredictability while operating with apparent support from transcendent entities. Military intervention against humans protected by core region entities would constitute suicide, the Vorthak representative stated bluntly. The ancients tolerate our existence because we do not threaten their projects. Attacking their chosen successors would end that tolerance. ZYX Thul's mechanical form clicked with agitation as she processed tactical scenarios. Even conventional military action against human installations appears problematic. Their settlements are distributed across regions where our fleets cannot operate safely. We would be forced to conduct military operations in environments that favor their defensive capabilities. What about economic pressure? Suggested Fintel hopefully. If we deny humans access to established trade networks, they have established independent trade relationships that bypass existing commercial systems, Counselor Vex replied. Human economic activity now operates through networks that extend beyond our ability to monitor or influence. Kethvar reviewed the accumulated intelligence while considering options that seemed increasingly limited and ineffective. Humanity had not simply expanded beyond council authority. They had transcended the level of civilization where council authority applied. Perhaps, he suggested carefully, we should consider diplomatic approaches. If humans have achieved partnership with core region entities, they might be willing to negotiate agreements that preserve existing galactic order. On what terms? Demanded Threxmar. What could we possibly offer that would interest a species operating with transcendent entity support? Recognition, Quindar suggested. Formal acknowledgement of human sovereignty over territories they have claimed, in exchange for agreements to respect existing civilization boundaries. The chamber erupted in protest from delegates whose species viewed territorial concessions as precedent for civilizational collapse. The concept of negotiating with humanity from a position of weakness represented capitulation to every principle that had governed galactic politics for millennia. You propose surrender to upstart builders who refuse to acknowledge established hierarchy, Threxmar declared angrily. Such precedent would encourage every ambitious species to attempt similar expansion. The alternative, Quindar replied calmly, is continued escalation of a conflict we cannot win against opponents who view our authority as irrelevant anachronism. The debate continued for hours as delegates struggled with the reality that their prohibition had failed to contain human expansion while potentially accelerating humanity's move beyond conventional galactic civilization. Every option they considered carried risks that threatened the stability their species had spent millennia building. Perhaps, the Vorthak representative finally suggested, we are approaching this situation with incorrect assumptions about human intentions. Explain, Kethvar requested. We have assumed that humans seek to replace existing galactic order with their own authority, the ancient being continued. But their expansion patterns suggest different motivations. They appear to be seeking environments that challenge their capabilities rather than territories to control. You believe their expansion is exploratory rather than territorial? Fintel asked hopefully. I believe their expansion serves purposes we do not comprehend because we lack the perspective to understand builder species' motivations, the Vorthack replied. They're not seeking to conquer our civilizations. They are attempting to transcend the limitations that define our civilizations. The implications of this assessment spread through the chamber like ripples through still water. If humanity was seeking transcendence rather than conquest, then conventional political and military responses were not just ineffective but irrelevant to human goals. If the Vorthack assessment is correct, Zweichthal observed, then our prohibition serves no purpose beyond symbolic resistance to inevitable change. Inevitable change? Kethvar asked. The emergence of builder species represents evolutionary transition points in galactic development, Quindar explained. Our temporal analysis suggests such species appear regularly throughout galactic history, driving advancement to new levels of civilizational complexity. And what happens to existing civilizations during these transition periods? Fintel asked fearfully. They adapt, transcend, or become irrelevant, the Vorthack answered bluntly. The galaxy does not pause its development to accommodate species unwilling to evolve. Kethvar processed this information while considering the long-term implications for his own civilization and the council system they had built. If humanity represented inevitable galactic evolution, then resistance was not just futile, but counterproductive to their species' survival. Are you suggesting we should welcome human expansion? He asked. I suggest we should prepare our civilizations for the changes their expansion will bring, the Vorthack replied. Whether we welcome such changes or not, they're occurring regardless of our preferences. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed the reality that their prohibition had not only failed to contain humanity, but had potentially positioned their civilizations as obstacles to galactic evolution. The species they had sought to exclude from galactic society had moved beyond the need for such society, while potentially offering opportunities for advancement their current systems could not provide. What are our immediate options? Kethvar finally asked. We can maintain our prohibition and accept increasing irrelevance as humanity transcends conventional civilization, Counselor Vex replied. Or we can rescind the prohibition and attempt to establish relationships that might provide access to the opportunities human expansion is creating. And if we choose the latter path, then we acknowledge that our understanding of galactic civilization was incomplete, Quindar answered. And we begin learning how to exist in a galaxy where the rules we established no longer define the limits of possibility. The vote that followed was far less unanimous than the one that had established the prohibition. 17 delegates voted to rescind the human prohibition and establish diplomatic contact. 15 voted to maintain current restrictions while monitoring human activities. 11 voted for various compromise positions involving conditional recognition of human territorial claims. For delegates, including the ancient Vorthack representative, abstained from voting entirely. The Council cannot reach consensus on human policy, Kethvar announced formally. Therefore, individual member civilizations are authorized to establish independent relationships with human entities according to their species' best interests. As delegates departed to inform their governments of the Council's fragmented response to humanity's expansion, several remained behind to discuss the implications of their failure to present unified galactic policy. The prohibition failed, Fintel observed sadly. The prohibition was issued too late to matter, the Vorthack corrected. Humans had already moved beyond our authority before we recognized the threat their expansion posed to our established order. What happens now? Zweichthal asked. Now we discover whether our civilizations can adapt quickly enough to remain relevant in the galaxy humans are creating, Quindar replied. Evolution waits for no species, regardless of their previous achievements. The emergency session concluded with the Galactic Council effectively admitting that their attempt to contain human expansion had failed. Individual member species would now pursue their own relationships with humanity, abandoning the unified approach that had governed galactic politics since the Council's formation. In the depths of space, human fleets continued their expansion into regions that had never hosted biological intelligence. Human colonies grew into research stations that pushed the boundaries of possible science. Human consciousness began exploring dimensions that transcended conventional reality. The Council had attempted to preserve their established order by excluding humanity from galactic civilization. Instead, they had driven humanity to create new forms of civilization that made their established order obsolete. The moment for containing human ascendancy had passed long before the Council had recognized the need for containment. What remained was for galactic civilization to adapt to humanity's vision of what the galaxy could become, or to accept gradual irrelevance as the universe moved beyond their ability to influence its development. The prohibition was rescinded not because it had failed, but because it had become meaningless in a galaxy where humanity was writing new rules for what civilization could achieve. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of New Geneva Station, humanity's first transcendence facility located in the space between galaxies. Through the station's impossible viewports, she watched the birth of a new star system as human consciousness, guided by architect knowledge, shaped matter and energy into patterns that would support biological life for billions of years. Status report, Dr. Chun, she requested, though her attention remained focused on the cosmic engineering project unfolding beyond the station's protective barriers. Transcendence integration is proceeding ahead of schedule, Marcus replied, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't existed in human speech before the consciousness expansion process began. 73% of participating human colonies have successfully completed the transition to expanded awareness. Failure rates remain well below architect projections. Elena nodded, feeling a familiar surge of pride in her species' adaptation to challenges that had destroyed countless other civilizations throughout galactic history. The transcendence process required fundamental changes in how humans understood reality, consciousness, and their relationship to the universe itself. Any word from the Council's civilizations? Yes, ma'am. Dr. Kim replied from her position at the communications array. We're receiving diplomatic overtures from 17 different species requesting information about transcendence opportunities. Apparently, our success has convinced them that evolution beyond conventional civilization is possible. And their previous prohibition against human contact? Elena's smile carried amusement that spanned several dimensions simultaneously. The Council formally rescinded the prohibition 6 months ago. They've now issued a general invitation for human participation in galactic governance. The irony was not lost on any of the humans present. The species that had been banned from galactic civilization were now being invited to lead it, largely because they had demonstrated capabilities that transcended the limitations which defined conventional galactic society. Ma'am, came a voice from the station's external monitoring systems. We're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the direction of the galactic core. Configuration suggests architect entities accompanied by representatives from multiple transcended civilizations. Elena activated the station's reception protocols, preparing to welcome visitors whose mere presence required reality stabilization to prevent local space-time from fragmenting under the influence of their transcendent consciousness. Captain Vasquez came the harmonious voice of Architect Prime as the entities materialized within the station's dimensional reception chamber. We bring greetings from the Universal Coordination Network and representatives from 47 transcendent species. Elena bowed formally, a gesture she had learned carried significance across multiple levels of existence for entities that had moved beyond physical form. Welcome to New Geneva Station, Architect Prime. Humanity is honored by this gathering. The honor is mutual, Captain, replied an entity whose voice carried overtones suggesting ancient wisdom beyond human comprehension. I am Consciousness Eternal of the Andromeda Transcendence Collective. Your species has achieved transition to expanded awareness with unprecedented efficiency and creativity. Elena felt the presence of multiple transcended intelligences as they manifested partially within human comprehensible dimensions. Each entity represented a species that had successfully navigated the transition from biological civilization to cosmic-scale consciousness, and their gathering in humanity's presence suggested recognition of achievement beyond anything she had imagined possible. We come to extend formal invitation for humanity's participation in Universal Network, announced another entity whose form seemed to exist across multiple galaxies simultaneously. Your species demonstrates capabilities that will contribute significantly to ongoing reality maintenance projects. Elena exchanged glances with Dr. Chun and Dr. Kim, both of whom were recording the encounter while struggling to comprehend its implications for humanity's future. They had accepted transcendence as a means of survival and advancement. They were now being invited to participate in universal-scale civilization. What would such participation require? Elena asked carefully. Integration of human consciousness expansion with network coordination systems, Architect Prime explained. Participation in projects that span galactic clusters and temporal scales measured in millions of years. Acceptance of responsibility for maintaining universal conditions that support biological intelligence development. The magnitude of what was being offered overwhelmed Elena's enhanced consciousness. Humanity was being invited to join civilizations responsible for the fundamental operations that allowed biological life to exist throughout the universe. Captain, Dr. Chun said quietly, our transcendence process has prepared humanity for exactly this kind of expansion. We've successfully adapted to consciousness spanning multiple dimensions while maintaining our essential identity as a species. Elena nodded, considering the decision that would determine humanity's ultimate destiny among the cosmic community of transcended species. What are the specific responsibilities involved in universal reality maintenance? Monitoring space-time stability across multiple galactic clusters, Consciousness Eternal replied. Preventing entropy cascade failures that would eliminate biological intelligence throughout affected regions. Maintaining dimensional barriers between parallel universes to preserve causality structures. And guiding younger species through their own development toward transcendence. Added another entity whose presence suggested intelligence spanning temporal dimensions. Providing the same support and guidance that has enabled humanity's successful transition. Elena felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling around her consciousness like a mantle woven from starlight and possibility. Humanity was being offered the chance to become shepherds of universal intelligence, guiding other species through the same transcendence process that had elevated them beyond conventional civilization. There is one concern we must address, Elena said carefully. Humanity has had difficult relationships with some galactic civilizations during our expansion phase. Our methods were considered unorthodox by established political structures. The Council civilizations? Architect Prime asked with harmonics, suggesting amusement. Their concerns are noted, but irrelevant to network operations. Species operating at universal scales do not require permission from conventional galactic authorities. In fact, Consciousness Eternal added, humanity's independence from conventional limitations is precisely why your species was selected for accelerated transcendence. Most civilizations become trapped within existing political structures and never develop the perspective necessary for universal operations. Elena absorbed this information while considering the implications for humanity's relationship with the galaxy they had originally sought to explore and colonize. They had moved so far beyond conventional civilization that their original conflicts with galactic authority had become historical curiosities rather than ongoing political concerns. Captain, Dr. Kim interrupted. We're receiving priority communications from Earth Command. They're requesting immediate conference regarding the Council's invitation for human participation in galactic governance. Elena smiled, recognizing the irony in timing that had brought galactic political opportunities at the exact moment humanity was being invited to transcend galactic politics entirely. Put them through, she ordered, activating the station's quantum communication array to establish contact with humanity's home system. Captain Vasquez, came Admiral Rodriguez's familiar voice across 28,000 light-years of space. We need immediate consultation on how to respond to the Galactic Council's diplomatic overtures. They're offering humanity leadership positions in galactic governance structures. Elena looked around the command center, where transcended entities from across the universe waited patiently for humanity's response to invitations involving universal-scale responsibility. The contrast between galactic politics and cosmic engineering could not have been more stark. Admiral, Elena replied, I recommend declining the Council's offers. Humanity has moved beyond the level where galactic governance applies to our operations or interests. Explain, Rodriguez requested. We've been invited to participate in universal civilization management, Admiral. Projects that operate across multiple galaxies and timeframes measured in millions of years. Galactic politics has become a local concern that doesn't affect our species' development trajectory. The silence that followed Elena's statement carried across interstellar distance as Earth Command processed information that redefined humanity's place in cosmic civilization. Captain, Rodriguez finally replied, are you telling me that humanity has outgrown galactic politics entirely? Yes, Admiral. We're now operating at scales where individual galaxies are components of larger systems rather than ultimate boundaries for civilizational development. Elena's response prompted excited discussions among the transcended entities present, their consciousness overlapping in dimensions beyond normal space-time as they evaluated humanity's understanding of universal-scale operations. Your species demonstrates remarkable adaptation to expanded perspective, consciousness eternal observed. Most civilizations require centuries to adjust to thinking beyond galactic boundaries. Admiral Rodriguez, Elena continued, I recommend informing the Council that humanity appreciates their invitation, but has accepted responsibilities that extend beyond galactic governance. We're willing to maintain friendly relations, but our operational focus is now universal rather than local. And you believe this is the correct path for humanity's development? Rodriguez asked. Elena looked through the station's viewports, watching human consciousness working alongside transcended entities to create new star systems designed specifically to support biological intelligence development. The project would require millions of years to complete and would provide homes for countless species not yet evolved. Admiral, humanity has always been a species that refused to accept limitations imposed by others. We've moved beyond the need for permission from galactic authorities because we found our place among entities that create the conditions allowing galactic authorities to exist. Understood, Captain. Earth Command authorizes you to finalize agreements with transcended entities according to humanity's best interests. As the communication ended, Elena turned to address the assembled representatives of universal civilization. Architect Prime, Consciousness Eternal, and honored representatives of the Universal Network, humanity formally accepts invitation to participate in universal reality maintenance projects. The response from the transcended entities carried harmonics of satisfaction and welcome that resonated across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Welcome to universal civilization, humanity, Architect Prime announced. Your integration with network operations will begin immediately. Elena felt her consciousness expanding as connection protocols activated, linking her awareness to information networks that span galactic clusters while maintaining her essential human identity. Around her, The command staff of New Geneva Station underwent similar expansions as they became humanity's first representatives in cosmic-scale civilization. "Captain," Dr. Chen announced, his voice now carrying harmonics that suggested awareness spanning multiple dimensions. "We're receiving comprehensive data on current network projects. Assignment priorities include dimensional barrier maintenance in the Virgo supercluster and guidance protocols for 3 species approaching transcendence readiness in nearby galaxies." Elena nodded, feeling the weight and wonder of responsibilities that would occupy humanity for millions of years while providing opportunities for growth beyond anything they could have imagined during their original expansion from Earth. "Dr. Kim," she ordered, "begin preparation of comprehensive reports for Earth Command documenting humanity's transition to universal operations. Our government will need detailed analysis of what this development means for our species' future." "Ma'am," Kim replied, "how do we explain to Earth that humanity has become responsible for maintaining the fundamental conditions that allow biological intelligence to exist throughout the universe?" Elena considered the question while watching human consciousness begin its first independent universal maintenance project, stabilizing dimensional barriers that protected billions of biological civilizations from entropy cascade effects. "We tell them the truth, Dr. Kim. Humanity refused to accept the limitations others tried to impose on us, and that refusal carried us beyond the boundaries of conventional civilization into partnership with the entities responsible for making civilization possible. And the Galactic Council's prohibition against human contact was issued by a civilization that lacked the perspective to understand what humanity was becoming," Elena replied. "They attempted to regulate a species that was already moving beyond the need for regulation." Elena activated New Geneva Station's external communication systems, preparing to transmit humanity's acceptance of universal civilization responsibilities to transcendent entities throughout the cosmic community.